A new virtue signal flooded social media yesterday, introducing most Americans to a new word, a new holiday, in fact, that countless politicians on the left and the right are now pretending to celebrate in attempts to try to win over more brown immigrant votes. The latest one now being Diwali, which you may have seen pop up on your iPhone calendar just a few years ago, which you can't delete as part of their diversity initiative. It's a Hindu festival. It's a celebration of one of the 10 million or however many supposed gods there are in Hinduism, defeating one of the bad gods, because as we all know, most non-white immigrants who come to America don't end up assimilating into our culture. They end up congregating and then expanding in both size and influence, and then start demanding that we celebrate their culture. And then we see politicians start virtue signaling and bending over to the immigrants who came to our country instead of the immigrants appreciating us allowing them here and incorporating our holidays into their lives and their traditions. And you're not going to believe which Republicans are pretending to celebrate this and wishing their Indian constituents a happy Diwali. So be sure to stay tuned and subscribe to my channel if you're new here. This holiday is celebrated in at least one Indian village every year by the villagers getting together and having a giant cow poo fight. When I first saw this screenshot floating around, I thought maybe it's just a meme mocking the kind of poor Indian people over there who often bathe and do their business in the same rivers. But no, this is an actual celebration to mark the end of Diwali. Now, it's not throughout the entire country, to be fair, but as documented here, the locals have their annual cow poop flinging party. Okay, this is what Republicans now are celebrating. We're supposed to be happy this kind of a cultural enrichment has been imported into America. And it happened because countless Indians invaded America through the immigration legal loophole known as the H-1B visa loophole, which the great Tucker Carlson tried to alert the American people to years ago, even when he was working for Fox, squeaking it by the corporate controllers.
The rideshare company Uber has fired more than 1,000 workers since July, mostly Americans. That's about 2% of its workforce. Meanwhile, during the same period, the federal government has approved hundreds of new H-1B visas for Uber. And that means they can replace those workers with foreign scabs who will work for less.
And who don't celebrate American holidays. That's why the big corporate conglomerates like the H-1B visa loophole importing the Indians, because they will work on American holidays. They, many of them, obviously not all of them, but many of them couldn't care less. They see America as an economic zone to be exploited, not to a country to move to and to become a part of. Even President Trump called this out when he first ran for president back in 2016, only to, well, sadly, change his tune after getting sweet nothings whispered into his ear by people like Vivek Ramaswamy. So now he thinks it's a fantastic idea because he wants to keep that GDP propped up at all expenses, despite, well, the cultural damage that importing third worlders does.
Well, first of all, I think, and I know the H-1B very well, and it's something that I frankly use, and I shouldn't be allowed to use. We shouldn't have it. Very, very bad for workers. And second of all, I think it's very important to say, well, I'm a businessman, and I have to do what I have to do, and it's sitting there waiting for you, but it's very bad. It's very bad for business
and our culture.
In terms of, it's very bad for our workers, and it's unfair for our workers, and we should end it.
And it's eroding American culture. The memos definitely went out yesterday for members of Congress to start jockeying for the newly coveted Indian votes by posting about it. If you were scrolling through social media, I'm sure you couldn't help but notice the strange flood of happy Diwali messages, like I said, from people on the left and the right. Chuck Schumer, Eric Fartsmell added a nice little graphic along with it. Cory Booker, to his credit, put a little more work in. Instead of just having his staff post a happy Diwali message, he recorded a video telling some kind of a Hindu allegory about the gods battling light versus dark.
We're celebrating the great holiday of Diwali. It is a celebration of light over darkness, of good over evil. Perhaps the most important contest is not in the world, but that contest within us.
I'm sorry, sir, but I'll just stick with Jesus and Easter Sunday. This is almost as bad as Kamala Harris posting her happy Kwanzaa messages, the fake black cultural holiday, which was started by a career criminal who just ripped off the Jewish menorah and then claimed it was a symbol of African American culture. Here's a little sing-along that Sesame Street posted on social media featuring some Hindu kids.
Diwali, Diwali, it's a festival of light. Diwali, Diwali, shine happy and bright.
Here's New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who sadly will be defeated by communist Zoran Mamdani, doing his best to try to go after that Hindu vote in New York.
This is Mayor Eric Adams, wishing you all a happy and joyous Diwali season.
By the way, I did not add the music. The music is in the original.
Diwali is the festival of lights, a time to celebrate the triumph of good over evil and wisdom over ignorance.
Now listen, obviously I'm not opposed to people celebrating their cultural heritage or their religion, no matter how kooky they may be. But can we put an end to American politicians virtue signaling to every cultural and ethnic celebration that isn't American at its core and in its roots? The founding fathers of America weren't Hindus, they weren't Indians, they weren't Jews, they weren't Muslims, they weren't Africans, they weren't Asians, they were white Europeans. They were Christians, or at the very least, cultural Christians. Well, they did instill a separation of the church and state. Thomas Jefferson was a deist. He still was a cultural Christian. He still liked the teachings that the Holy Bible taught. We would expect this cultural diversity virtue signaling from the Democrats, like Governor Gavin Newsom, who posted this Happy Diwali message. California celebrates Diwali. Most people in California, most people in America have never even heard of Diwali, okay? And then that was echoed by his wife, who goes by First Partner. Not the First Lady of California, they're that woke. The First Partner, because it's gender neutral. And a fun little fact, in case you didn't know, Governor Newsom's wife slept with Harvey Weinstein back in the day when she was trying to climb that corporate ladder in the film industry, just like all those other floozies who then also later accused him of raping them when word got out what they had done and they were embarrassed about sleeping with him to get their career started or boost their career. So that's Gavin Newsom's wife. A Harvey Weinstein floozy. But like I said, it's not just the Democrats who are virtue signaling about Diwali this year. The top Republicans in Congress and in the Trump administration are doing it as well because, well, I mean, they've flooded our country with so many H-1B visa Indians that they're desperate to try to get them to become Republicans. And J.D. Vance married an Indian woman, and this is their wedding photo. Him wearing a dress with a dot on his head. Okay. So obviously she, like many non-European immigrants who come here, haven't assimilated, or the children of the immigrants who come here haven't assimilated into American culture, and instead subject the men who ultimately end up dating them into engaging in humiliation rituals by putting on a dress at their wedding. Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, also Indian, wishing everyone a happy Diwali. Senator Ted Cruz jumping on the virtue signaling bandwagon, adding that it's him and his wife are wishing everybody a happy Diwali to our Indian friends. The official account from the House Republicans posted one. Of course, Vivek Ramaswamy, who himself is Indian, who you may recall, went off on a Twitter meltdown last Christmas, denouncing American culture, native-born Americans, saying that we need to flood our country with more Indians through the H-1B visa loophole along with Elon Musk, and then spreading the lie that it's only the best and the brightest who use that program, which then resulted in a bunch of Twitter sleuths investigating which companies and what kind of workers are using that loophole, revealing what we've all known, that it's often low-skilled workers and laborers who then come in, and the Americans have to train their replacements before getting fired and then replaced by the H-1B visa Indians. And here's Tommy Robinson, of all people, sounding exactly like Bill Maher, celebrating the cultural diversity of England, with white people tracking to be a minority over there, just like we are here in the United States.
Just a quick happy Diwali from me to everyone who's celebrating it today. I'd like to express our gratitude as British citizens, because Hindus and Sikhs have been a great shining example of how immigration can work and can benefit. Yeah, how it does work, how they integrated, assimilated, and they're very peaceful, harmonious communities. So to all the Angela Merkels of the world who said they need to open the borders to match because we haven't got enough of a birth rate, open your borders to Hindus or Sikhs. They'll come and work hard and be great citizens in your country.
Literally indistinguishable from what Bill Maher had to say about white people becoming a minority in England.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, England became America.
Yeah, we import your culture.
I mean, I remember being in England the first time in the 80s, and it was very different.
Yeah.
Very different.
How so?
Well, first of all, London was like all white.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was.
You know, so can we just celebrate that victory, that we made a place more diverse and not, you know, you never get a pat on the back.
No.
The people who like achieve, I feel like, in that area. There's only like, there's more to do. Of course there's more to do.
Of course, there's still too many white people there. And in America, he insists. Bill Maher is Jewish, by the way. But get ready for a big letdown. Caroline Levitt posted President Trump's message on Diwali, where he said, "To every American celebrating Diwali, may this observance bring abiding serenity, prosperity, hope, and peace." And we're not supposed to talk about the number of scam artists on the internet, particularly on social media, on Twitter especially, from India. It's become a well-known issue over there that there are countless people from India who are literally posing as Americans, as being MAGA accounts since the platform monetized, and they're just flooding it with a bunch of AI slop. And so we're seeing memes like this, like they're offering a Jeet block. Jeet, I think, is like a racial slur for Indian people. We don't care about racial slurs around here, by the way. We believe in free speech. And if you're offended by them, then you are a snowflake. So somebody made this meme about what they call Jeet block, where for $3.99 you could just block all accounts from India, sort of like a VPN, you know, and then Jeet block Ultra. You can get everything from the basic tier, 5 additional block categories. Works on Reddit, TikTok, and YouTube. And in case you didn't know, because you're not going to hear this on Fox News or Newsmax or from any Republican member of Congress, but the founding fathers of the United States actually wanted America to be a supermajority white. And after the first Congress was formed, they passed what's called the Nationality Act of 1790, which restricted new citizens, the immigrants who were coming here, couldn't be citizens unless they were white. Free white persons, actually, to be more specific, meaning they couldn't be people who were in indentured servitude. So a lot of immigrants who came here, even from Europe, were on like an indentured program where they would have to pay off somebody for working for them for like 5 or 7 years. And so to avoid them having any undue influence, they didn't want the indentured white Europeans to be citizens as well. So it literally restricted new citizenship to free white persons. And that was basically the law of the land until 1952. So no wonder why Happy Days was depicting peak American culture back in the 1950s. And then in 1965, Congress passed the Hart-Celler Act, or the Immigration and Nationality Act, which then put an end to the racial quotas of immigrants. So it still was restricted to predominantly white Europeans, even until 1965, when the Democrats lied and then crammed that through, saying it wouldn't change the racial demographics of America at all, even though that was obviously the point of getting it passed. But the brand name conservatives in the mainstream right-wing media ecosystem and Republicans in Congress are too cowardly to talk about such things. So subscribe to my channel if you're new here, and if you enjoy watching my videos and want to support my work, then buy me a coffee by clicking the link in the description below. It's a great service that allows people to tip their favorite content creators, because YouTube's super chat and super thanks skims like 30% off the top, even before taxes. So click the link in the description below, buy me a coffee, or however many you think my work is worth, by clicking the link in the description below, heading on over there and checking it out.